All right. Good evening, everyone. It is Monday again. There we go. Okay. I think I've got everything set up. Welcome. All right. We're actually on time. Yes, it feels good. We're going to be talking a little bit more tonight about the concept of the olive tree. And speaking of branches, that's been like our whole life the last few weeks. After that ice storm we got hit with on the 29th of March, we had some dear friends come with a literal tree eating machine and ate up a whole bunch of the branches for us yesterday, which was really cool to watch. Today, we'll be talking about encouraging the trees to live, not cleaning up the branches when they fall, but it was still really awesome to watch. All right, so as you're coming in, I have another giveaway this week, so make sure you hang on till the end to find out and get a chance for my giveaway. All right, go ahead and say hi as you pop in. And I am going to go ahead and get started. We will be in Ephesians a bit today, if you happen to have your Bibles handy. I'm just trying to find my spot here. We'll be in Ephesians chapter 2 quite a bit. Okay. Again, the book study we are doing is, there we go, The Renewed Covenant by Greg Witter. Yes, chipper machines are super cool. I had seen some videos, but to watch him just, chips flying everywhere and just devouring everything, it was super, super cool. Welcome, Paula. Glad you made it. We are like all of us on time today. Super fun. Okay, tonight we are in chapter 5. We're going to be talking a lot about Judah and Israel and being all joined together. So it's going to be really cool. Okay. We're going to start in Ephesians chapter 2 because that is quoted a lot in this chapter. So I want to be familiar with what we're talking about. Okay, Ephesians chapter 2. For those of you who haven't looked at Ephesians lately, it is an excellent book to go through and actually list off all the ways we are described as believers. It's amazing how many are in there. So it's a really good study to do. If you haven't done that, I encourage you to do that. All right, I just want to see where I want to start reading here. And I think we'll go ahead and start at verse 11 and possibly in through the end of the chapter, which should give us a good context for some of the verses that are quoted in the chapter. Okay, therefore remember that at one time you Gentiles in the flesh, called the uncircumcision by what is called the circumcision, which is made in the flesh by hands, remember that you were at that time separated from the Messiah, alienated from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now, in Messiah Yeshua, you who once were far off have been brought near by the blood of the Messiah. For he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in place of the two, so making peace, and might reconcile us both to God in one body through the cross, thereby killing the hostility. And he came and preached peace to you who were far off, and peace to those who were near. For through him we both have access in one spirit to the Father. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Messiah Yeshua himself being the cornerstone, in whom the whole structure, being joined together, grows into a holy temple in the Lord. In him you also are being built together into a dwelling place for God by the Spirit. Okay, I just want to remind you, you all know this, but be sure when you're reading something and they quote a single verse that you go and check the context, like read the whole chapter if possible, or even the chapter before and after, that type of thing, so you know the context that verse was in, so that you're not as likely I mean, it still can happen that we might misinterpret something, but that you're less likely to cherry pick and build thoughts based on taking something out of context. Okay, so like I said, today we're looking at this concept of being grafted in, and those who are physical descendants of Abraham and those who are not actually being joined together into the same tree. And this idea that through Yeshua, that wall of separation between us, that is cultural, genetic, all of those things, that he breaks it down so we can all be part of the same spiritual family, which is really, really cool. So if you were able to read the chapter this week, he was explaining the cultural significance of the olive tree. I'm assuming they probably do not grow here in Michigan. Is that true?
True.
Yeah, they definitely would not grow here in this climate.
Mediterranean.
Okay, he's saying it would. My husband's in the background. He's saying it would be in the Mediterranean, so that's not something we're going to see here. But it was very prevalent in that culture. That it was used for cooking, for worship, for anointing. So there's a lot of purposes for the olive tree. And it was common practice to, you'd have a cultivated tree, and then to rejuvenate it, to improve it, they would actually bring in wild branches from wild trees, grafted into the cultivated tree. So when he gives us this picture, the people would obviously immediately understand, unlike us who we're not used to seeing olive trees or having them an integral part of our culture. So okay, it's one of the comments. I love how it specifies that we become members of the household, and the same rules apply. Absolutely, it's important that we remember. Yes, we're all under the same house rules. It's not different because we're from a different background. Okay, so yeah, that idea of we are the wild branch, they are the cultivated one, and then we're joined into the tree. So we're different, meaning we might look different. We've been raised different. We're from a different culture, but we're all one in the same tree, and that's a lot about what we're going to look at in this chapter. Okay, so he said, I'm just checking my what I underlined here. Salvation through Yeshua is not a replacement of Elohim's covenant with Israel. It is literally its fulfillment and expansion. So a lot of us, we were taught replacement theology, that the church is now somehow in place of Israel. No, we are part of the same story, but we were brought in from the nations, from a different culture. So we look a little different, but it's still the same story. It's the same story. And my favorite example of that is the story of Ruth. We know she came from the country of Moab, which had at least one main pagan god, if not multiple under that main one. I think it was Kamesh or something. The point is, they were definitely a pagan culture. So that was her background, but she joined Israel. And I had often wondered, when you start actually looking at the Torah commands, that a Moabite was not allowed into the temple worship or any of that for like 10 generations. So how do we then have like King David, who is like, I think her great grandson? It's definitely not 10 generations, until you realize when she came back with Naomi and joined herself, when she said, your God will be my God, your people will be my people, she basically was saying, I am no longer Ruth the Moabite, I am now Ruth the Israelite. And she was recognized as such, so that her descendants were an integral part of Israel and the worship Solomon would have been her great grandson, and he built the temple. So that's how that worked. Is she was no longer recognized as Moab; she became Israel. And I think that is such a beautiful picture. She is my favorite one to point to explain that that we are coming from very diverse and often pagan backgrounds. But we are now Israel. We're no longer what we were. And yes, in the comments, I agree. The term Gentile believer, it's pretty much an oxymoron. We have left what we came from, and we are now Israel. We're not trying to claim all these titles. We are either one or the other. So, but yes, when we see the term Gentile in the context of this chapter, he is explaining this is where you're coming from, and then we're all being brought into the same tree. Which like I said, it's such a beautiful picture. So the concept of the tree goes all the way back to Abraham. And what I thought was really cool, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but we know we have the three main patriarchs. We have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I knew he made a covenant with each of them, but what I didn't catch is that he specifically made a promise to each of them that included the nations. And I wanted to read those verses for you because I had not seen that before. This very powerful, very clear promise that the nations would come and be joined to Israel, which of course we are like a fulfillment of, which is super cool. Okay, so the first one he says to Abraham in Genesis 12:3, in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. And then to Isaac in Genesis 26:4, he says, through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. And then Jacob in Genesis 28:14, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. So he then repeated it 3 times to 3 different people, making it that much more absolute and concrete, which is really, really exciting. Okay. And then, okay, so then we go into Galatians, which it's funny. If you actually look at Galatians in the correct context, which of course this book study is a tool that's helping us to have that proper Hebraic mindset. We often are people throw Galatians at us to tell us why we're heretics for keeping the Torah. I actually threw Galatians at my sister because she was realizing Shabbat and stuff first. I'm like, well, haven't you read Galatians? Well, like if you actually read Galatians, it says that you need to keep Torah. But okay, so I want to read in Galatians chapter 3, General Electric Power Company. Did any of you learn how to remember the order of those books with a little acronym? If you did, tell me. I'd love to hear it because I know there's more than one. I learned the order of those by General Electric Power Company. All right, chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, in you shall all the nations be blessed. So then those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. And then again in verse 29, he says, my nose is itchy. And if you are Messiahs, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to promise. So by faith, we are joined in to the covenant that started with Abraham. We are part of Israel. And anytime we're trying to look at ourselves as something separate, it's you've got to be part of Israel. That is the door. That is the way in. And as a result of that, we need to, first of all, be aware of who our spiritual forefathers were and live as they lived, such as following Abraham's example of faith. I want to make sure I'm reading the comments here. Jim Staley's teachings on Paul's letters. Yes, you're saying I struggled with them for a long time when new to Torah. Yes, I think a lot of us struggled with that because, as Peter said, Paul's teachings can be hard to understand. But once we realize, and I need to ask some people if this is true. I had heard that Paul actually had the whole Torah memorized. And if that was the case, no wonder everything that he said, it was coming out of a very intimate understanding of Torah. But if we don't realize that, and we're trying to assume that he is saying something new, and we're forcing that view on it, we're going to get it all messed up. So if you want to have a really good, solid understanding of Shaul's teachings, I know that that Greg, the author of the book we're studying, he has had a real heart for helping people to understand that. He has Romans already done, and I think he's working on Galatians. So I'm sure those will be a very helpful tool if you need a little more solid understanding of that. But yes, I agree with the comments. You guys are going fast on me. But yes, if we're coming to a conclusion that Shaul is somehow trying to do away with Torah, we are the problem. We need to revisit and check context and remind ourselves that he was coming at it from everything was based on Torah, and there's no way to get around that. So, all right, we'll go ahead and keep moving here. Okay, so as we're looking at being joined to Israel, grafted into that tree, we're coming from a different place, but we're brought all into the same covenant. We revisit that verse in Ezekiel 36. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. And of course, that heart of stone is stubbornness, pride, thinking we have it all figured out, refusing to change our ways. And he says, I want to give you that heart of flesh, that desire to follow my ways, to do my will, to live the way I want you to live. And as we've talked through this whole study so far, moving from an external set of rules to an internal desire to do what is right. Yes, Shaul was a very high Pharisee, and well, he was a Pharisee of good standing at the very least, who did study under Gamaliel. So yes, he definitely knew what he was talking about, had a very solid foundation of Torah. So yeah, anything he wrote has to be understood with that lens, that's where he was coming from. Okay, so as we again continue to look at the we've got people who are like direct descendants who were raised in Torah, and then we have people like us. I think most of us are coming from the same background where we were raised thinking that mostly it was just about the New Testament, that the church was somehow some new thing, rather than that Scripture is a continuing story. But as we come together, that Yah is doing this amazing thing where he's taking people from two very different backgrounds and bringing them together under one umbrella of his covenant. One of the verses that popped out to me, because this is definitely a spiritual work of the Spirit bringing us together, because it's not something we can do by ourselves to actually be joined together like this. It was in Ephesians 2:18, and it says, if I can find the right one, for through him we both have access in one Spirit to the Father. So it's this beautiful picture that through the Spirit, through the spiritual work that he is doing, we can actually be united under the same umbrella. I think we need to show up and try to be united with our brother Yehuda, but that ultimate uniting is definitely a work of the Spirit that he's going to do, and he promised he would. He will do what he said he would do. Yes, the historical context, and one of you commented about being raised in pagan Christianity, and yeah, the more we learn, the more we realize that absolutely is true. And a paragraph jumped out at me in chapter 5 on page 67. He says, the first century world was deeply divided along cultural, religious, and social lines. Yehudim and Gentiles often lived in tension, with the former adhering strictly to the Torah and its commandments, while the latter came from diverse backgrounds steeped in pagan traditions. The early assembly of believers faced the challenge of integrating these two groups into a single covenant family. And my immediate thought was, yeah, sounds about right. Sounds like the challenge we face today. Not much has changed. So we still have this struggle. And I just want to encourage you that we do need to show up and try to embrace unity. And we're going to talk about that. Doesn't mean that we just compromise all over the place, but we are in the same covenant. We are serving the same Elohim. We have common ground, and we need to try to find that common ground and be united in that. In Torah, in the Messiah, we're serving the same God, and we need to focus on that rather than what's different. I don't know if is that maybe human nature, where we want to see, well, you do that differently than me, and that's like all we can see. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just human nature, but we need to try to focus on what we have in common. It is ultimately his work that he promised to do, that he said he would make us one. But we certainly should not be fighting against that goal. We need to be one people. And again, it does not mean that we all become cookie cutters of each other, that we erase our individuality. That's not what he called us to do. If we are all keeping Torah, we're all trusting in the Messiah, we're all trying to be a light to the nations and help other people understand how to live in covenant and join Israel, that doesn't have to erase that I'm from Michigan and someone over here is from South Africa and someone over here is, was raised in Israel. It doesn't have to erase that. In the comments, this is, our diversity can bring perspectives, and that's valuable. We were raised in different places, different cultures, different ways of life, and that's a good thing. It is. As long as we can work together to say, we are all in the same covenant. We are all Israel. We're not following religions. We're not following man-made traditions. We're trying to do what this book says. We're following the same Elohim, and there's unity in that. And of course, it's by the Ruach HaKodesh. We even have the power to show up and try to do that. So, yeah, it's a journey, and that's why we need his help to do it. Okay, just a few notes that he had on an application of that, that we can embrace diversity, that we're coming from different places. And again, I'm not saying, oh, well, this person's living in sin. I'm saying this is just like cultural and how we were raised and where we're from, this, and personalities and things. That I'm not talking about false doctrines or things like that. I hope we're clear on that. That it's so that we are not bricks. We're not cookie cutters of each other, and it's never expected that we are. I think it's interesting that his altar that he describes, I'm trying to think if it's in Leviticus or Exodus. He says it's built of stones and no tool is to be used on it to hew it down, to shape those rocks. They are to be built the way Yah made them, and we're not to try to chisel them down to all look the same and fit, or pour them like bricks. We want to be individual rocks that were all made unique by our Creator, and we don't want to be forcing each other to all be the same, I think is the key here. All right. And as we're trying to live with each other and worship and commune with each other, Romans 14:19 gives a good guideline for us to follow. Romans chapter 14 and verse 19. So then, let us pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbuilding. So we don't want to be unnecessarily divisive. We want to try to work together, promote peace in the body. And I think someone had mentioned in the comments earlier, I'm not talking about how you're talking to people in the grocery store thing. This is specifically in the body of believers that are in covenant, that are part of Israel. Okay. And I think something too that we often forget, and I mean, it's understandable. A lot of us are trying to unlearn and relearn years and years and years of stuff that we were taught. But we do want to remember that a big part of the mission of Israel was to be a light to the nations, so that all the nations could be blessed through Israel. So we do want to keep in mind that when we are given opportunity, when someone sees our tzitzis or asks us why we aren't working on Shabbat, that we have an answer and that we're ready to share with them why we choose to live the way we do and what the Messiah has done for us to save us. We want to be that light to other people so they can understand how to live in covenant too. And I think sometimes we forget that that is part of our mission, is to make disciples of the nations and share with them so they can join Israel too. So, okay. It was interesting teaching how to celebrate Shavuot to Kenyans. Our foods are different. Same with Pesach. This is when it is important to ask questions more than simply telling them how to do that according to our own traditions. Yes, and there's a lot of the commands, like for the feasts. I think maybe there's a reason that they're not very detailed. I mean, the sacrifices are very detailed, but as to how to keep it and like what you're to eat at the meal and stuff, a lot of them are much more open-ended, and maybe that's to allow for that Israel is meant to encompass all nations ultimately, and we're all coming from different places, which makes it just a really beautiful thing. How many man-made religions are centralized? I think we were talking about this morning, that there's like the Egyptians would have their gods and their religion, but it's central to Egypt's, or over here we've got Moab, for example, and they have their gods and their setup of their religious system. Whereas Israel, it started in Israel, but it's meant to bring in people from all of the nations. And I'm studying one of Greg's other books, and he's talking about the term in the Hebrew El Elyon, which is when we see in Scripture the Most High God, that He is above all of creation, all of the nations, all of the other pagan gods, that Israel is to encompass all nations. And I think that's just it's exciting to serve a God who is he's in charge of everything and wants to bring in people from all cultures to faith. So, and it all, of course, started with the olive tree started with Abraham and the promise he made through him that everyone in the earth would be blessed through him. So, all right, I think I've covered everything I meant to cover today. Oh, I just wanted to close with one more thought. In Galatians chapter 3, it says, unlike the Mosaic covenant, which was centered on Israel and its distinct identity, that's where it started. The renewed covenant transcends national, cultural, and ethnic barriers. In Galatians 3:28, it says, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Messiah Yeshua. That Elohim's plan for redemption, anyone is welcome. It doesn't matter where you're coming from, where you were raised, what religion you were brought up in. You are welcome to join Israel and find saving faith through Yeshua the Messiah. And it's open to everybody. And that's just so wonderful. All right, as I promised, we have a giveaway today. And if you already got a prize in a previous one, make sure you leave it open for everybody else. Okay, so today I have, thanks to Amy Gunther, I have another copy of Torah Sisters magazine to share with you today. Make sure you're getting in the comments if you would like to win this copy. Put in me or whatever works, okay? And this one, it looks like, I was taking a glance before I went live. It looks like this one is focused on Shabbat. So there's all kinds of ideas for keeping Shabbat. We have, let's see, We have a whole bunch of recipes. We have some things to not do on Shabbat that will surely ruin it. We have, here's one, 15 tips to manage Shabbat dishes. That sounds cool. 10 things to make sure we're passing on to our children. How to keep your home clean throughout the week so that it's easier to manage everything on Shabbat. So lots of cool ideas in this magazine. So if you would like to win a copy, make sure you're putting in the comments that you want to win a copy, and we'll pick a number in a few minutes. What I thought was really cool is she has a whole bunch of pasta recipes, and I like pasta. Mac and cheese, bow tie pasta, linguine, roasted red pepper walnut sauce, turkey tetrazzini. Anybody tempted? Yeah. All right, we've got a few people here. All right, anybody else want a chance to win a copy? All right, can you pick a number for me?
1 to 2.
All right. He's got a number for me. He picked number 2 this week, which would be Kingdom Sisters in Torah. So I know you won the last one. Okay, so our winner is Kingdom Sisters in Torah. That's the name you're using online. If you would please send me an email. My email is sheepmommy@yahoo.com. If you would send me an email and remind me that you won the magazine and send me your address, I will get this mailed out to you this week. So congratulations to you. Okay. Next week, we will be here again, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as we used to say. We will be in chapter 6 next week. And I think everybody that I'm seeing live right now has a copy, but if anyone needs one, I will be putting a link in the comments after the video gets posted. If anyone still needs to purchase a copy, and be sure you're sharing this with your friends so that they can get a better understanding of the renewed covenant as well. I'd love to see some more people join us. All right. I am going to go ahead and say shalom to everyone, and we will see you again next week at 7 p.m. All right. Shalom, everyone.